Hi. Hello. Um, I'm in a new place than I was in my last video. This is because I'm back on tour, so prepare to see a whole bunch of different locations and me trying to figure out where I can film in all of these places. I'm currently in Oxford, so it's the closest I'm ever going to get to going to Oxford Uni. Yeah, performing here. So if any of my castmates walk in and out, then I'll probably cut it out so you won't even see it anyway. We'll do it without. Be alright. Anyway, hi. Sade. Most people call me Day. Feel free to do so. And yeah, welcome to another Greek mythology video. I hope that you've seen the last two. They were split into two parts, but we did Heracles and his 12 labors, his birth, his death, everything in between. Hera, Op. You already know Hera's an Op if you've watched my past videos. If you haven't, you should go and do that. But come back, because this one's going to be great, okay? Also, while you're at it, something I always forget to do, you should follow me on social media. My Instagram, my TikTok. You can follow my Twitter, but I don't really use it. We'll just throw it up there. So yeah, follow me. I feel like it's too bright right here. Like that's too much. You know what I mean? I'm gonna just yeah. Yeah. Anyway, so today's video was actually requested on my last video, and I don't want to get this wrong. I'm going to put the screenshot up, but I want to pronounce it correctly. So this video was requested by Limfolerato7474. Okay, here's what they said. So this is what we're doing today. Thank you very much for your request, and please keep doing so. I have some ideas lined up for things I want to do, but your requests mean the world to me, okay? I am merely your servant, so please keep them coming, okay? So today we're going to be talking about Aphrodite. We all know Aphrodite. She's the goddess of love, fertility, childbirth, all that stuff. Not to be confused with Eilithia, who's the goddess of midwifery, who turned Galanthus into a weasel. You guys remember. But I thought that was like interesting to add, because it's like different gods and goddesses can have similar kind of jobs and similar roles, but they're different people, you know what I mean? Anyway, so when I got the request, I was like, what's the best way to do this, to talk about Aphrodite? Because I feel like with Heracles, I was like, okay, specifically his 12 labors, I don't know, maybe there was other stuff that he did, but that was like the important bit. So when I was like, what can I do for Aphrodite? I was like, let's focus on love, okay? Let's focus on what she's about, who she is. And I discovered she was cheeky, okay? She was married, but she had a lot of affairs and a lot of little babies, okay? So that's what we're going to talk about today. Aphrodite, her affairs, her love life, that side of things, because that feels applicable. But we are going to talk about Aphrodite's life. There are conflicting stories about her birth, like as time went on and the stories get passed down, they get changed. And she wasn't really a part of like the native Greek mythology. So the story of her birth has conflicting stories, right? So there's two different people who have come up with her origin story. So Homer says that Aphrodite was the daughter of Zeus and Dion. Fairly regular, two parents, she's born, easy as. You can go with that one if you're boring. My preferred idea of how Aphrodite was born was, okay, this one comes with a story. Okay, so settle in. So this is Hesiod's idea of where Aphrodite came from, okay? So you've got two gods, Uranus, who is the sky, and Gaia, who is the earth. So everything in Greek mythology, like all things have a god attached. So, the sky, the earth, like Gaia is the earth. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of like in the last video how I said Helios came down to Heracles in his human form, but Helios is the sun. Does that make sense? So the sky and the earth, they have kids together. And these children are the Titans, one of the main Titans being Cronus. Cronus comes up in so many stories, and we'll discover that more as time goes on, but this one's crazy. So Cronus, okay? The main other story that he pops up in is like the whole like Titan thing, and like, so he's Zeus's dad, which means he's also Hades, Poseidon's dad as well, and then there's a whole story attached to that. But I am going to do like a full deep dive into like where all the gods came from, where humans came from. I think I said that in my last video, but this was requested, so I wanted to do it first, but that is coming. Anyway, back to Gaia and Uranus. So they had the Titans, but then they also had some other kids. So they had Cyclopses and 100-handers, which the idea of that makes me astronomically uncomfortable. Like, they have 100 hands. But Cronus looked at these kids and was like, ew, disgusting, get rid of them. And what he did was he basically took them and put them in the middle of the earth, like under the crust of the earth, so no one could ever see them. But if you remember, Gaia is the earth. So he basically took them and put them in her womb to basically trap them there. What is it about men and trying to control women's reproductive rights? Like, from the very, very start of everything, it's not just life right now. Greek mythology. What do you mean you're putting them in her womb and expecting her to just be comfortable when they're kicking around in there? Absolutely not. So obviously, Gaia's not happy about this. So she went to Cronus, right? Did I mess up? Did I say Cronus is the one who did that? I shouldn't have. It's Uranus. I don't know if I did that. I don't think so. Anyway, so she goes to her son, Cronus, and is like, we need to sort him out. Like, I want you to attack him, right? So she creates this stone sickle. If you don't know what a sickle is, there's a picture right here. So she creates one of those out of stone, and she's like, go and attack your father. He's like, cool, got it, let's go. You'd think that he'd like go for the head or like go for the heart, but he said, you're just not going to have any more kids, because if you can't control yourself and you can't be a good dad, then you're not going to have any more kids. And he goes and he chops off his baby maker, like all of it, like his meat and two veg, if you know what I mean. If you're British, you know that, his meat and two veg. But then he throws the two veg down to earth, right, like into the sea, and then they foamed up and created the like white foam that you see on the sea, and out of that foam came Aphrodite. Did you forget we were talking about Aphrodite? Because I forgot we were talking about Aphrodite. Yeah, so that's Hesiod's idea of how she was born, which is homothedithe, how do you say, fucked. Yeah, but yeah, that's how she was born. Cool. Moving on. But that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about her affairs. So in order to have an affair, you've got to be married, right? How did Aphrodite, the goddess of love, end up married? End up chained down? Let me tell you. So similarly to her birth, there are two conflicting stories about how she ended up married. So one version is that Zeus basically was like, all you gods are going to fight over her because she's so pretty and beautiful and model-esque. So I'm going to marry her off to Hephaestus because, who cares? Like, she'll be married off and then none of you can fight over her. Which is crazy because the gods are going to do what they want to do. Like, we know that already. We've gone over that. Another version is basically our favorite goddess, Hera. Okay. So she has a baby called Hephaestus. And so the baby comes out and she's like, why is this baby so ugly? Like, I don't know what was wrong with him, but he was ugly, and she was like, I don't want an ugly baby. So she just banished him. She was just like, yeah, you banished, go and live your ugly life over with the uglies over there. It was during this exile that ugly Hephaestus learned he was learning blacksmithing. So that's what he is. That's his thing. Like, that's what he's the god of. I think he's a god. I'm pretty sure he's a god. So he's like the god of blacksmithing. So one day, Hephaestus is living his ugly life. And he's like, hold on. There's no way that this happened to me. Like, really? My mom banished me just for being ugly? So he comes up with his revenge plan, right? So what he does is he creates this golden throne, right? And he sends it to Hera. I don't think she knew that he sent it, but anyway, he sends it to her. She sits on it and it traps her on the throne. Like, she's not able to get up, which I guess he like cursed it in some way because he's a god, but then also blacksmithing is what he's the god of, which is crazy because that feels like a really human thing to be the god of. But then there's a god for everything. So am I just chatting Maybe. Anyway, so then that's when Zeus comes to Hephaestus and is like, let Hera go. If you let Hera go, I will give you Aphrodite and I will let you marry Aphrodite, which is insane because she's literally known for being extremely beautiful. She's the goddess of love, and you've married her off to a guy who was exiled by his own mother for being an Argo. How? How does that even happen? She's married to Hephaestus. Cool. I wouldn't be happy about it if I was Aphrodite. I'm not Aphrodite. Just so you'll understand why I said that a little bit later. The sun is gone. Now I'm leaning for no reason. And obviously Hephaestus is very happy. Revenge resulted in him being married to like the most beautiful goddess. She's known as like the most beautiful one. Mad. Although it's very reminiscent of life and how the most beautiful woman ever that you've ever seen will get her heart broken by a man who looks like he lives under a bridge. You know? Anyway, so that's the marriage. Let's get on to the affairs. I didn't find a way to segue into it, but in my script I've written, as much as I support women's rights, I support women's wrongs. Because, yeah, cheat. Like, you're forced marriage. You should be able to cheat, I think, personally. Hey, I don't make the rules, okay? So the first and best known lover of Aphrodite that we're going to talk about today is Ares. So some believe that Aphrodite and Ares were already seeing each other before she got married to Hephaestus, and some believe that it happened after. But I think that it probably started before, because it's hard to believe that she's gotten to the point where she's now married and she's not getting any, you know? She's literally so beautiful, but whatever. But Ares is the god of war. Most of the other gods didn't like him because he was known for being very cruel. Like, he just had a very cruel nature. He's also the god of courage, and he has the ability to shapeshift. That's going to come back up later, so keep that in mind. I need to keep an eye on the time because I have to perform a show today. I am performing. I am sitting here and performing like I don't have stuff to do. So I've got an hour. So hopefully this video is less than an hour. Check the time. Is it less than an hour? Okay, thank you. Thank you. So anyway, Aphrodite and Ares are seeing each other, having a great time. She likes him even though he's super cruel and mean, but you know, they say girls love a bad boy. So one day, Helios, who we were just talking about, who is in my eyes right now, Helios comes to Hephaestus and he's like, by the way, just so you know, your wife is cheating on you. Hephaestus is like, what? He's like, yeah. Hephaestus is like, with who? Ares? Yeah. So they had that conversation. So he's like, I'm going to catch them in the act, right? So he goes back to his little blacksmithing area and he creates, it's like made of metal, but it's like a net. But the netting itself is so thin that it was basically invisible. And so he puts it over his bed and he's like, Aphrodite, baby, my love, I'm going to go and do something. I don't even know. And she's like, oh, okay, cool. Thinking that he's going to be gone, she invites Ares over. So they're in the bed, they're getting it on, they're having a great time. All of a sudden, this net drops from the sky, essentially, and traps them in the bed. He loves trapping people, that Hephaestus. So then Hephaestus comes in from when he was hiding, basically outside the window. And he gathers them up in the net and brings them up to Olympus so the other gods can basically laugh at them for what the situation that they've gotten themselves into. It's said that Hermes, Apollo, and Poseidon were like the main gods who just found this really funny. But eventually, Poseidon convinces Hephaestus to let them go, and he does. And they continued their affair. It wasn't like, oh no, we got embarrassed, let's stop. It was like, oh no, we got embarrassed anyway. So they actually went on to have multiple children together, despite the fact that she's married to Hephaestus. And Hephaestus is clearly a very vengeful person, but they do that anyway. So this is the list of kids that Aphrodite and Ares had together. So there was Anteros, the first one. He is either the god of unrequited love or reciprocal love, depending on who you ask. But that one makes no sense to me because those are literally two complete opposite sides of one thing. But I couldn't find like a definitive answer of which one it was. So yeah, Anteros. Then there was Deimos, who's the god of fear. Himeros, who's the god of desire. Harmonia, who's the goddess of harmony, both marital and civic. How does the goddess of marital harmony come from the union of someone cheating on their husband? some of this stuff makes no sense to me, but I feel like that makes it even more interesting because it's like, how did we get there? But like, I'm not complaining, but like, make it make sense, you know? They had Phobos, who is the god of panic, and Pothos, who is the god of longing, sexual longing specifically, and Eros, who was basically like Aphrodite's constant companion. Eros was always with her. He's the god of love. So Aphrodite is the goddess of love, and then her son is the god of love, right? Again, differentiating sources, but some say that she was already pregnant with him when she came out of the water and that he is twins with Himeros. So those are the babies essentially. And another interesting thing I saw was like the kids, like having like one of the kids be the god of love and then one of the kids be like the god of panic and things like that, and god of fear. It's like, what happens when one of the parents is like the goddess of love and then you've got that with like the god of war and like a really cruel and chaotic person? What the kids are like when you have that, you know, like they're not all just like gods of love or like all sort of demons. It's like you get a bit of everything. But Aphrodite didn't just get with gods. Another one of her very famous known lovers was a mortal man. I think I want to know more about Olympus versus like Earth and what the difference is and how they can just come down and be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna fall in love with a mortal, and just we'll do a deep dive into that. I'm very intrigued by that. But anyway, Adonis. Now, the story I'm about to tell you is so incredibly wild. I need you to very firmly buckle your seatbelts because I had to take a break. I wrote down this story in my script like when I was coming up with this whole thing, and I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna shut my laptop because this is too much. I need to take a nap, I need to go to sleep, and then I'll come back to it in the morning. I didn't come back to it for at least 2 days. It's a lot. So let's get into the story of Adonis and Aphrodite. So there's this young girl called Myrrha, right? And her mum, whose name I'm 100% mispronouncing, I'm going to try my best. I'm going to say Centrius, spelled like this. Centrius is what we're going with. Anyway, so that's Myrrha's mum. So Myrrha's mum is going around to people going, oh my God, look how beautiful my daughter is. And to be fair, her daughter was very beautiful. Myrrha was a very beautiful young girl. But Centrius is going around saying to people, look how beautiful my daughter is. She's even more beautiful than Aphrodite. You can't do that. What's the number one rule? If you guys don't know by now, I'd be very upset. The number one rule, don't mess with gods. Just don't do it. Because then look at what life does to you. Obviously, Aphrodite hears this and she's not happy. So, instead of taking it out on Centrius for being the audacious bitch she's being, she decides to make Myrrha fall in love with Centrius's husband, who is, if you're keeping track of the family tree, Myrrha's dad. Aphrodite makes her fall in love with her own dad. Okay? Sure, this is just the start of the story. So she's just, as time goes on, falling further and further in love with her own father. And with the help of her nurse, is one day able to sneak into her dad's bed late at night when her mum isn't there, and she does the dirty with her father. Oh my God. And so this happens a few times, like a few nights in a row, until the dad is like, ooh, let me one day, because she's been going in the dark, like no candles lit or nothing. So one day he's like, let me light a candle so I can find out the identity of this young girl who keeps sneaking into my bed in the middle of the night. So cool. She comes in one night. They do the do. He lights the candle. He sees that it's his daughter. And obviously he reacts the way that any of us would, with just an extremely fervent homicidal rage. He grabs his sword and he just starts swinging, right? He goes to kill her. He wants her dead. Fuck the fact that he's her daughter, right? She's his daughter, sorry. And so she runs for the hills, obviously, because she doesn't want to die. And so she wanders around in the forest, I guess, for a really long time. And then she finds out that she's pregnant with her father's baby. So she just starts praying. And I'm going to read the prayer. I didn't commit it to memory. I'm just going to read it to you. So she says, okay. "O gods," she cried, "if you will listen to my prayer, I do not shun a dreadful punishment deserved. But now, because my life offends the living, and dying I offend the dead, drive me from both conditions, change me, and refuse my flesh both life and death." Now the gods are hearing this, and they know what Aphrodite has done. Like, they know that this has come from the result of a curse. So they're like, okay, basically grant her wish by turning her into a myrrh tree. If you've ever heard of myrrh, you know, frankincense and myrrh, her name's Myrrha. So they turn her into a tree. And then, like, the sap of the tree is like droplets of myrrh. I don't know what myrrh is, but it's part of the story. So, myrrh. So a few days later, a wild boar is walking past the tree, and it decides to pierce the tree with its trunk. And so the tree opens up and a baby falls out. Because remember, Myrrha was pregnant with her father's child, and a baby falls out, and the baby is Adonis. Did you forget what we were talking about? Did you remember that we're talking about who Aphrodite is going to fall in love with? So Adonis falls out. As this is happening, Aphrodite is walking past the tree, and so she comes and sees, and these nymphs come down as well, and they're like, we have to look after the baby. And so they, like, I don't even know, they like anoint him in the droplets of myrrh, like that scene in The Lion King. And so Aphrodite's like, oh my goodness, look at this beautiful baby. Pause, but okay. And so she, like, basically puts him in a box, and she brings him to Persephone, who is Hades' wife, aka the queen of the underworld. And she's like, I need you to look after this baby, basically just like until he's of age, and I can come get him, which is weird. Obviously, I'm pretty sure you guys figured that out already. Anyway, years later, Aphrodite goes back to Persephone. She's like, where's Adonis? She sees Adonis. He's a gorgeous young man at this point. Oh, I don't know how young he is, but he's a gorgeous man. And she's like, oh, that's a bit of me. I want him back. But Persephone's like, no, actually, I want him. And I imagine some kind of The Boy Is Mine, Santana, Mercedes from Glee kind of situation happened. Yeah, so now Persephone, who raised this child, is now also in love with him. So they're kind of at a standstill. So they're like, we need to bring this to Zeus. Only Zeus can decide what happens now. So they bring it to Zeus, and they're like, we both want him. What do we do? Like, he's immortal as well, which is crazy. And Zeus is like, I don't want this smoke. I don't know why you guys came to me. I'm not involved. So he then goes to Calliope. So Calliope is one of the muses. And so they go to Calliope, and they're like, can you settle this? Because I don't want to hear it. And the solution that they settled on was that Adonis would spend 4 months of the year with Persephone, 4 months of the year with Aphrodite, and the other 4 months he would get to choose, but he tended to spend most of that time with Aphrodite. So Aphrodite and Adonis had one kid together. This was Bero. So Bero was the goddess of basically a city in Lebanon called Bero. And she married Poseidon later in life. So one day Adonis is out on a hunt, and he comes across this boar, very angry boar, who won't back down basically. And Adonis is trying to fight it off, but it's really persistent with like trying to attack him. It does manage to, and it pierces him, and he falls back, and Aphrodite is there, and she's holding him in her arms, and he passes away in her arms, and the droplets of his blood end up falling onto the flowers around him. That's how we now have anemone flowers. These ones, I wasn't really too familiar with them, but that's where they came from. But the interesting part of this story is, do you remember how I said that Aries can shapeshift? It's very strongly believed that that boar that killed Adonis was Aries in disguise, because he was angry that Adonis had been smushing his woman, who was not his woman. Where's Hephaestus? Like 4 months out of the year, Adonis was coming to Aphrodite. I mean, 8 months really, because he'd spend his other 4 months with Aphrodite. Where is your husband? I don't get. Moving on, not moving on. So Aphrodite, as I said, he dies in her arms, and Aphrodite's like, he's going to go to the underworld with Persephone. No, he's mine. So she starts basically running, hauling ass down to Hades, down to the underworld so she can get her man back. But Zeus stops her. He's like, pick your battles, okay? He's going to be there regardless. Like, just stop, okay? And she does, because she could get any man. She's Aphrodite, but whatever. I hear one of my classmates. I don't know if they're going to come in here. It's really embarrassing to just be like, oh, by the way, I'm in here filming a YouTube video. So, her next one is Anchises. Okay? I feel like I can put this down, right? You guys can still hear me if this is not in my hands. Probably hear me better because it's settled. Again, a lot of the stories to do with Aphrodite have differing stories of origin. So the Anchises story kind of has the same. So some believe that Aphrodite just saw this young Trojan prince and decided, yep, that's my next one. Let's get onto it. Do you know what I mean? But others think that Zeus was basically angry at Aphrodite for making the gods, particularly himself, fall in love with mortals. And so he made her fall in love with Anchises, who is a mortal, as revenge. Isn't that far-fetched for something Zeus would do, to blame somebody else for all of his shortcomings as a man? So Anchises was a Trojan nobleman. He was royalty, basically. I feel like the lighting has gotten so weird in here. I'm just like, the sun is moving and I'm just moving with it. But the pictures are coming up here, so I'm sure it's fine. So Zeus says to Anchises, yep, you are going to be with Aphrodite, but the only rule is that you cannot tell anyone that you've been with her, right? Cool. So they get together, they smush, they have a kid called Aeneas. Aeneas? I think it's Aeneas. It's, again, you tell me. And Anchises and Aeneas together played a really big role in the Trojan War, but that's another video for another day. I don't want this to be too long because we're talking about Aphrodite. So everything's fine, everything's cool, they're noble, they're royal, they're fighting in wars, they're everything, right? But Anchises can't keep his mouth shut. So he starts telling people that Aphrodite is the mother of his child. And then one of the times that he says it, Zeus hears it. And if you remember, Zeus is the god of the sky, god of lightning, you know, that's his thing. So Anchises gets struck by lightning and dies. Moving on. So Aphrodite then had an affair with the god Dionysus. And if you remember from the Heracles video, Dionysus was the god who gave the centaurs the wine. He's the god of wine. He's the god of wine. He's also the god of like mania, group mania and stuff like that. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. So as a punishment for her promiscuity, which doesn't even exist, like the word promiscuity doesn't exist with gods and goddesses, but so be it.
So my mic died. I don't know what happened. It turned off. It's connected to a wire, so it shouldn't. But for the next like 3-4 minutes, my mic is off. Sorry about that. My bad.
As a punishment for her promiscuity, Hera, who we love so much, of course, basically cursed her with having an ugly child. His name was Priapus, who was the god of fertility, gardens, livestock, and male genitalia. Why does there have to be a god of male genitalia? Don't know, but it's a thing. So anyway, it's said that Priapus had like a really misshapen body and just kind of weird proportions. An enormous genitalia. Why? I don't know. Okay, I'm just the messenger. Another one of Aphrodite and Dionysus' kids was Aeacus. Again, pronunciation. I think it's Aeacus, who was the god of mysteries. Like I can't pronounce the word. these kind of mysteries. I feel like it's Eleusinian mysteries. So Aphrodite had some other kids as well. So I'm just gonna list them off, and then we'll be done here essentially. So they're Hermes and Aphrodite, kid called Hermaphroditus because they kind of just put their names together, but then also Hermaphrodite. Basically, Hermaphroditus merged with a naiad who was female, and so their bodies merged together, so they had both female and male genitalia, hence Hermaphrodite. I don't know if Hermaphroditus, sorry. I don't know if that's a word that is still used. I don't think it is. Intersex, I guess, would be the word. So, sorry, I don't mean to offend. But yeah, Poseidon and Aphrodite had a child called Rhode, goddess of the island of Rhodes, and she went on to marry Helios, who is the sun god, who we've mentioned quite a few times today, who has moved. And that's it. That is Aphrodite and her many affairs and her many babies. And yeah, thank you for watching. Leave your suggestions in the comments. Like, subscribe, share, please. I would love to have more people see this. Yeah, thank you. Bye.